Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the We Bought a Franchise podcast. I'm Jack Johnson. Jill is not with us today. She's unfortunately down for the count with a sickness. But we do have the next best thing, which is all of our great team members and a very exciting guest. So joining us today, Aaron Harper, the CEO of Rolling Suds. We also have Catherine Allen, MVP of Soccer Stars franchise and one of our great franchise consultants. Brian Gross, one of our franchise consultants who was the top performer of his system last year and also has a successful exit. Then we also have David San Juan. David is number 4 or 5 in his Pink's Windows system. David continues to add units and do all kinds of crazy things in the entrepreneurial world. So lots of great things happening. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this session today. Listen, there is no one better in the world of franchising at bringing the brutal truth of what business ownership is, the highs and lows, than Aaron Harper. So Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited for this format.
Yeah, Aaron. So, for you've had kind of a wild ride in franchising. You started like me coming from California. And now I believe are you in Nashville?
I'm in Nashville. Yeah.
What's that like to go from SoCal to Nashville?
Yeah. There's one problem with Nashville. There's no waves here. But there is a lower cost of living and the opportunity to build wealth that I would be unable to build if I lived in Newport Beach, California. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a learning curve and an adaptation for Southern California beach surfer snowboarder to move to a landlocked state and kind of figure things out. But I love it. Met my wife out here. We wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
That's awesome. And Aaron, your background in franchising. So Aaron, I feel like we've worked together for a long time, starting back in maybe 2017.
Yeah.
Maybe share, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit about your journey and what brought you to Rolling Suds.
Sure. So I've been in franchising for a long time, working predominantly on home or commercial service franchises, and specifically growing those commercial or home service franchises to become the largest brand in the world in that specific industry. So first it was carpet and floor cleaning. Then it was drywall repair. And now decided to venture out on my own to become an entrepreneur and acquired a 35-year-old power washing brand that was non-franchised and turned it into a franchise. And, we've now grown from a single location power washing business in 2023 to 326 units operating in 35 states across the country, becoming by a wide margin the largest power washing brand in the world, and doing that through finding great franchise owners that believe in our mission, and building a team that can build truly like a world-class national organization that predominantly does commercial power washing, but obviously we still do residential as well. And then recently stepped into a chairman of the board position by hiring a professional CEO to run my company.
Aaron, that's an incredible story. But knowing you, I'm not at all surprised. Anywhere Aaron goes, franchises, I mean, let's be real. Aaron before Rolling Suds, and Rolling Suds is a great franchise, and the whole premise with the bigger trucks, doing the bigger jobs, getting in and out of jobs faster, is excellent. And it's a huge differentiation. But prior to that, Aaron was with a franchise called Patch Boys. Mm-hmm. Aaron, can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah. So okay. Patch Boys was a wild ride too. So that was bought by the company I was working for. It was a 98 unit system. And when they bought it, there was one part-time employee that came with the acquisition. That was it. And they're like, here you go, Aaron, grow this thing. And I was like, whoa, hold on. Let me figure out what's going on here. So I did a listening tour and identified that the franchisees needed a lot of help. And we needed to build something that actually was a system that was sustainable and able to be sold to prospective franchise owners, meaning that they could buy something that was a predictable ability to make money. And that's what a franchise should be, right? And so we did this by going out and listening to our franchisees, hiring a brand president, building teams, building training systems, building a marketing and a tech stack, and then kind of going to market. And that's when you and I started working together. And basically, I had identified that the brand at the time, for a variety of reasons, no one wanted to work with the brand anymore. And I had to essentially turn sentiment around within the larger broker community. And I had never worked with brokers before. And it was the middle of COVID. So I was literally cold calling you guys until you either became my friend or told me to go away. And we did that. I did that defensively because I don't like losing. And what ended up happening is it became offensive. We didn't have any time to do any organic lead gen at all, because we were able to build such great relationships, predominantly within FranServe. And since then, I've been able to now grow. I mean, we grew that from 98 units, kind of a backwards system, to 323 units in 2 years.
Okay, now hold on a second. So when I first saw Patch Boys, I looked at that and I said, I'm not touching that thing with a 10-foot pole, right? It's patching, its logo was clip art. Like Jill and I looked at that and we were like, what franchise is this? And then here comes this guy calling me. Aaron Harper's calling me. And like you said, at first it's like, dude, come on. But what I liked about Aaron was this. Aaron has probably sold more franchises than 99% of the people on this planet, but Aaron doesn't try and sell a damn thing. If you get on a call with Aaron about any franchise he's representing, he's going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. And he's actually not going to try and sell you. In fact, he's probably going to, it's almost like it's the opposite. Yeah. But by doing so, by telling people what it is like to be successful, what they need to do, and making sure they understand what's involved in business ownership, inherently helped you find good owners. And actually, Catherine and I have a client who bought a Patch Boys from you, who is now looking to potentially diversify to his portfolio and who's doing really well. He told us a great story about how he always, he dreamt of having a certain kind of vehicle growing up, and he was finally able to buy it. And look, while some people may say buying cars is not the smartest thing you can do with your money, you know what? This is America. And if that's what makes you happy, exactly. So,
and also Jack won't say this, but he exclaimed, Jack, you changed my life. You, like, hearing that on the call that we had together, he's like, I love you, man. I love you. You changed my life. You changed my life. Like, that is the beauty of this all. And the beauty of us being franchise brokers, Jack being able to present him with different options that aligned with what he was looking for. And yeah, buying that car, that story was really cool.
So cool. Very heartwarming. And it can really change lives. So, okay. So this is the reason why I wanted to set all this up, Aaron, let's get into now, what are you seeing out there? You're a guy that's out there. You were recently at a conference with a lot of brands and things like that. Where do you see the franchise market right now? Like, statistically, if we looked at the last 3 months, here's how the sales break down. 50% home services, 20% senior care, and the rest, everything else.
Yep.
What are you seeing? What are your thoughts on the franchise market? What's heating? What's cooling? Like, what are your thoughts on where we are right now?
I thought the residential commercial services would really cool after a while, since COVID. I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but it seems to like not be cooling at all. And in fact, there seems to be even like more aggressive, more interesting, more niche service businesses going to market. You've got the aircraft detailing concept, which is like super niche. And if you know anything about me, I love niche businesses. You're seeing just services making way more sense. Like if you think about traditional franchising, right? People who are listening to this that maybe never heard about like they think it's McDonald's, they think it's Chick-fil-A, they think it's Wendy's, they think it's Taco Bell. You invest let's just call it between $600 to $1.5 million into one of those brands. You're going to net, best case scenario, 9 to 11%. So if you invest 1.2 million, you get that business up to 1.2 million, which by the way is not easy. Your net on that's like $157,000 or something like that. Whereas you can invest in a service business, maybe be like 300 to 500 all in, and then net $150,000, let's just say, or 120 or $100,000 per unit. And so if you buy 2, 3, 4, 5 units, and I'm just talking in generalities, right? Not specifically about any kind of brand, not about my brand, but like it just, the economics make more sense. And in the market that we're in, the lending environment has the highest interest rates we've had in recent history. The SBA rates are now between like 10.5 and 12.5%. Home equity lines of credit are up. Like, so like if you think about the opportunity relative to like how much the cost of capital, I think that's why so many people are trending towards services. And I don't want to mention the brand, the portfolio specifically, because I don't know if this is public, but there's about to be a huge transaction in our space. A portfolio is going to market. And it's going to probably be somewhere between $1 billion to a $1.3 billion transaction. And the last time that residential commercial services has seen a transaction that large was Neighborly. And when a transaction that large happens, you have significant institutional capital coming in and proving out this thesis that I originally had when I franchised Rolling Suds, is that residential and commercial services is the hot thing and will continue to be. And I think part of that has to do with like AI. Like people are like CPAs, lawyers, like white collar professionals are terrified right now. Marketing companies are terrified because they're going to lose their job potentially in the next 2 to 3 years. We've already got coding that's basically gone. You know what I mean? And so I don't think like robots are going to start power washing houses anytime soon, or like fixing HVAC units, or like installing electrical. Now, maybe that's like way later down the line, but I think white collar is going faster than blue collar. And I think institutional capital is seeing that.
Aaron, there's a lot to dig into with everything you just said there, but I want to go back where you started, because I think you have a different take than a lot of people looking for franchises, even in home services, where you said, I like a niche business, right? And what you founded here is a niche business. A lot of people like services. They like recession resistant. They're looking for these big core services, HVAC, roofing, but you have a business here that's kind of an afterthought. I think in a lot of businesses, right? It's a kind of a secondary service for a window cleaning business or other cleaning. So if you're an investor and you're looking at the franchise space and you really want to go big and you want to scale a substantial business, why would you make the case for doing more of a niche service, say like power washing or they didn't have to be power wash, but other more specialized services?
So I'll talk specifically about power washing from the lens of why I chose it. And then I can talk about why a niche is, I think, better. So I chose it largely due to the fact that there's such a high commercial element to this. Like we're 60 to 70% of our business is commercial, which is generally recurring or reoccurring in nature and oftentimes contracted for multiple years. There's still a residential component. It's just about 30 to 40% of our business. So if you think about like how a business scales, at least in my residential pays a lot of covers a lot of the costs. And then when you get a large commercial job, you can buy more trucks or buy more territories or hire more people or those types of things. When you have an only residential service business, it can only grow so large. Whereas if you have a residential and a commercial business, your total addressable market is larger. I also chose it because there at the time wasn't a national player in the space. So I was like, it's a lot easier to become the 800-pound gorilla than it is to steal market share from the 800-pound gorilla, right? Like, so if you think about like Serve Pro before there was any restoration franchises, like they became a multi-billion-dollar company. If you think about 1-800-GOT-JUNK before there were any junk franchises, like they became a billion-dollar company, right? So like, and they didn't have any proprietary way to clean junk or to pick up junk. Like they just were first, right? And so those were some of the reasons why I chose power washing specifically, because franchise owners can build a sizable company in their local markets by servicing both residential and commercial demand. Now, why I like niche businesses specifically is it is a lot easier to stand out in the eyes of the consumer if you are known for one thing. So like think of Kleenex, right? Like Kleenex became it's synonymous with tissue, right? Like let me grab a Kleenex. It's because Kleenex wasn't, a wipe for like your head or your arms. It wasn't also a wipe for like the counter. Like it was specific to one thing. And so in the eyes of the consumer, that one thing becomes synonymous with the thing. And so
Aaron, we're seeing it again now with ChatGPT.
Yeah,
you may
exactly.
use a different kind of AI, but you say, oh, throw it into ChatGPT, even though you might be using Gemini or Claude or something like that. If you're to market first and you can sort of claim that sort of thing. And it's actually, and I'm sorry to jump in, but
go ahead. Yeah, please.
I'll forget. What's so interesting about 800 Got Junk? That is a model. That is a huge model for success in services franchising. And then they roll out Wow One Day Painting, which I would argue is actually a super brand. It's very smart, right? Wow One Day Painting. You mean I can get my house painted in one day? Well, turns out you call them and you tell them the project, it may not be able to be done in one day.
Right, sure.
But the brand was different. And then they come out with You Move Me, and they also had another one. And so on its head, on the surface, Wow One Day Painting is in my opinion, and I love Resi Brands and I love that one painter. On the surface, Wow One Day Painting is a stronger brand, but that one painter probably outsold it 10-1 and did it in a year versus, Wow One Day Painters just kind of, going along. And again, this is not at all throwing, mud at that company. They're a great company, but it's interesting to me that one painter comes along and essentially blows the doors off of all these other painting companies.
Yeah.
In terms of sales. And how does that happen? What? Go ahead.
I think they execute better, right? So like they clearly were able to get units and get a national footprint quickly by finding great franchisees and getting them open. But Wow One Day Painting is a perfect example of coming out and not being and having the first mover advantage, right? Because at that point there was already CertaPro, there was already, a variety of other brands. So you're coming in and now you have to execute considerably better versus just being first to market and having to execute better than the local guy, right? So when I was looking at brands, like I looked at roofing and HVAC and plumbing and solar and lawn care, and like every brand that I looked at had either an 800-pound gorilla or 5 to 10 other brands that were all capturing some element of market share. It wasn't 100% necessary for me. Like it was a nice to have to be first to market. It wasn't a need to have, because like you don't need to be first to market in order to be successful. Pinks is a perfect example. That one painter is a perfect example. Voda is a perfect example. Like none of those brands are first to market as the first franchisor, but they're executing better than the other.
Pinks just had something, and I'll never forget. You guys have all heard my story on this, but Jill and I we were going to buy that one painter, and we're at the discovery day, and we see the Pinks logo, like they were saying, we just brought this brand on, and I'm like, hold up, tell me about that. Because
That's
Jill
awesome.
and I have always been big brand people, and I was like, you know what? And I saw Brandon and Carter with the hats, and I'm like, I guarantee you, I could put one of those Pinks hats on everyone in our town. And that kind of drew me in on that. And I think that's, again, you're right. That's a perfect example of a brand. I think Resi had this culture. Also, frankly, Kimber's one of their franchise development people. Kimber called me nonstop until I started showing. She's like, you got to talk to us. You got to meet Steven. So it's that same thing that you did, where you kind of just roll up your sleeves as a new franchise and you go to work and you start getting the brand out there. And now we have, and bringing it full circle, guys, now we have Real Clean, which is, as David well knows, he has a client that was recently looking at it and lost out on a territory. You can't get Real Clean in Florida. It's gone now. And it's selling out across the country. And it only started with 1 or 2 units. So it's not like they're sitting there saying, hey, we've got 100 locations. People are buying it. Why? Is it because it's different and in the service industry?
I think it's because it's niche. I think that's a big piece of it. I think it's also first to market. It really highlights a couple of the things that I liked about my brand, and just like about businesses in general. It's a lot easier to capture market share when you're not competing against anyone other than local guys, right? And that's exactly where they're at. I think that's part of it. I think, obviously they're with Franchise Fastlane. They know how to move units. I just read Franchise Sidekicks, franchise report based on 73,000 leads. And they said 60% of the deals that are done in the broker community are from franchise development organizations, which is wild. And then 20% are done from Neighborly's, Authority Brands, Homefront Brands, these kind of portfolios. So that basically means for brands like mine, there's only 20% of the market share that we're capturing in terms of deal flow. I think one of my biggest concerns about franchising currently, if we want to talk about hot takes, is when a brand goes to market, right, and they have 1 to 2 units, they will go to market generally in the broker community. It's very hard to become a large emerging brand in the broker community, or a large emerging brand without going to the broker community, right? It's possible, but it's difficult.
It's hard. And you can't, I fought it too. And when I was at Home Care Assistance for years, we didn't want to pay the commission, right? We were like, no. And then eventually it's we were getting lapped by Brightstar, and it was okay, we got to do it. And so we hired someone who had broker connections, and we joined all the broker networks, and boom, 100 franchises.
Yeah. And I don't inherently have any issues with franchise development organizations going to market, bringing a brand to market. I think that without that, a lot of these brands aren't going to work. My problem and my concern is that a lot of these franchisors are going to market and doing that, and they don't have the money to do it. And so, I was talking to a brand that because when I go to these events, people follow me online, they're franchisors, they want to do something similar to what Rolling Suds does, and they're like, how do you do it, right? And so this woman's like, I am being pursued by every single franchise development company out there, and I heard you don't like franchise development companies, and I need to know why. And I'm like, I don't not like franchise development companies, but before we talk about that, how much money do you have to go towards franchising? She literally says none. She says none. It's not like I have 10 grand or I have 100 grand. The answer is none. So I'm like, okay, that's the problem. You're being pursued and you have no money. So it's just with the diligence process. So when she's like, well, how much money do I need? I was like, at least $500,000 to $700,000, on the high end, $2 million. And she's like, what? I was like, that's how much it costs. And if you go with a franchise development organization, you will have 10% of the franchise fee left over. And that's not enough to open the amount of units that they will inevitably sell.
But Aaron, don't you think, honestly, this is the crazy thing, by the way, is I spend more time working with funds and private equity. You think, honestly, if you have a good concept, raising money for it should not be hard. It really shouldn't be hard.
But they need to know that. And someone needs to tell them that. And it might not be in their best interest to tell them that, because then they might not sign them up as a brand. And that's my concern.
Well, isn't that how you did it? With Rolling Suds, you raised money.
I raised capital, and we did development in-house. So we were able to keep a larger portion of the franchise fee than if we outsourced it. And I still raised capital. And I had the experience in how to franchise a business. And the less experience you have, the more capital you're going to need, because you're going to burn cash without experience. So that's my concern, is we have franchisors going to market, selling a bunch of units, being told that they're going to be able to sell to private equity if a bunch of units are sold, but there's no diligence, at least seemingly, on like, do you have the money to support franchise owners? And I think that without the necessary diligence on that, we're going to keep facing issues where franchisors can't support franchisees because they don't have the money or the infrastructure to do it. And it was just her.
Now,
can we talk about this from like the viewpoint of a potential franchisee, right? Especially the one that says, you know what, I get the risk, right? But personally, I was franchisee number 3 in a system, right? And so you have to know there's extra risk going into that. You don't have the validation, you don't have the proven financials across the country. So with these top brands that are taking off, just like you mentioned, they're getting 60% of deal flow, right? They're growing from 2 and 3 units to 60, 100 units in the course of a year. What should a franchisee be asking? Like, from your viewpoint, what should they be thinking about to mitigate that risk?
You guys ready? If that brand is saying, hey, I know we have 2 units, we're going to grow nationally, and I'm going to tell you exactly that you can hire a general manager to run this thing, and you can pay him $80,000 and he'll run it and you can keep your job full time. What I would ask if I were a franchisee is I would say, why don't you do it? Why haven't you done it if it's that easy? And if the brand is like, the answer is it's not that easy. Because if it was that easy, guys, let's just be real. I wouldn't franchise my business. Instead of taking 8%, I'd keep the entire economic benefit of the business. And I know that that's probably not what people want to hear, but if I were a franchisee, I would say, why don't you do it if it's that easy?
Yeah, no, I think, Aaron, you're right. And that's the whole premise of our company now with franchise owners helping future franchise owners, is that when people ask these questions, you go to hire a GM, 80,000, 60,000, 100,000. Think of it this way. Could you imagine saying to someone, hey, I've got a great idea. We're going to build $1 million company. All we need to do is hire this guy for 60 grand and tell him what he needs to do. And that's it, $1 million company. That's exactly the thinking here. So now the line we walk is finding a way. When franchise owners make franchises special, take Catherine, for example. We were having a conversation right before the podcast, and Catherine just met with her CPA who shared, and I'm not going to say the exact number because, we don't want to make any earnings claims here, but Catherine's margins are fabulous. They are better than anything I ever accomplished as a franchise owner. But that's not system-wide, I guarantee you. Catherine is an excellent owner and she's managing her margins well. And that's where I think the point of all this is. And if you go onto our website, you'll see this on our homepage. It's not about finding the perfect franchise, because that doesn't exist. It's about becoming as close to perfect a franchise owner as you can. And what is that? That means understanding what's involved. I've always compared it to the first year of a franchise is like the first year of a new baby. You really have to put a lot of attention and care and effort into that new baby. You can't even hold its head up.
And you're losing sleep and you're waking up multiple times in the night, just like you have a new baby. I've got a 3.5-month-old. It's no different. You're like waking up in a panic because the business is crying and you need to give the business a bottle, which is money that you didn't want to give it originally. I mean, I could go all day on this metaphor, guys.
That's where I'm at right now. Even with a top 5 franchisee, my GM went down for a little while and I had to step up, go down there and deal with car accidents, and it just kept me up all night for weeks, keeping me up, trying to figure out what am I going to do next.
And if you had a full-time job that you weren't able to leave the office from in that instance, you'd have to quit your job or lose all your money. And I just want people to have success in franchising so that all of us on this call have an industry to invest our time and money into 20 years from now.
So I was still at my old company when I bought Soccer Stars, and I was like, I came from franchising, so I knew exactly what I was getting into, and but I was nervous, right? I was really nervous financially. My kids are in private school. We have a mortgage. Like we have all these bills, right? Like we need my income. And I was at training in New York at the Soccer Stars headquarters, and I got laid off at, at their headquarters. I walk out, and there's Morgan, my best friend, who's also a Soccer Stars owner and a franchise insider. And they're like, "Okay, time to you're officially an owner. We're doing our ceremony." And sometimes God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. And so I was like, there you go. And I jumped right in immediately because I knew if I left training and I didn't jump in and hit the ground running, I needed that momentum to get going, and I didn't stop. And my whole thing with owning a business was you need to lead by example, and I need to understand every damn aspect of this business in order to hire a manager, to train, to hire coaches, to train, to hold accountable. Like if you bring a manager in from day one, in general, like this is just my opinion. How do you train them? How do you hold them accountable? How do you build a culture if you are not completely involved? I was coaching 13 classes a week. I was doing sales. I was doing HR. I was doing everything. And did I burn myself out? Well, but yeah. But then, I brought in a manager, and I'm still working every day of the week, every minute I can. But less, and able to
Yeah,
focus on other things.
because
And
you've
so,
earned the right to do that
right.
by building a great business.
And so, yeah, so my revenue, I am at the top, and I do have the best profitability, but that's why.
So people
Yeah.
say to us, gosh, when you tell us about the realities of this, why would I do this? Why would I go through this hard time? Why? Because, and again,
Flexibility. It's on our time.
yes, you
Flexibility.
control your time. You're
Yeah.
building. It's like, you know what it is? It's like when you you want to rebuild your kitchen and your closet in your home. And you go through that 6 months of rebuilding the kitchen into the beautiful thing that you want it to be. And it sucks while you're doing it. When it's done and you're home now, if you need to sell that house and you got the best kitchen in the neighborhood, you're going to sell fast. And so the point of all this is that putting in the work and building the business, you ultimately, as the franchise owner, you're going to be the one that makes the business special. There's a reason why a couple of years ago, the Crumble item 19 showed average franchisees netting like 250, but the median netting at 85. Because some people are better at running crumbles than others. And what's great about franchising is that ultimately the more successful franchise owners will buy the less successful franchise owners.
Yep.
So you have built-in acquisition and exit. So for all of you out there who are sitting there who, you say, oh, I don't want a franchise. I want a mom and pop business because Cody Sanchez, and we love Cody Sanchez, but Cody Sanchez says, buy the old couple at the laundromat and the SBA is going to pay for all of it. No, that's not going to happen. Also, when you invest in a franchise, you get all the support, you get all the infrastructure, you get all these things to help you grow the business that inherently makes it so much more valuable.
Yeah, it makes it more valuable, and you get speed to scale much quicker. And
Mhm.
I want to be clear, like, it's not impossible to hire someone like David. You did it, and you know what I mean? So like, I think that's where this gray area is like, yeah, it's possible. Someone could do it. But like, a franchise is built for an average person. David Barr says this, an average person on an average day with average skill set, with average market conditions. Like, it has to be built for the average. And the reality is that the average person who's been working at Oracle for 15 years as a VP of sales that has never opened a business before doesn't know the stress of carrying payroll, doesn't know how to operationalize and improve profit margins, doesn't know, and most managers aren't business owners. And in order to get something off the ground, you need the stomach of a business owner, right? And so another trend I'm seeing, I'm really excited about this one, is because of this interest, this renewed kind of like almost renaissance of interest in business ownership, I think a lot of it has to do with like people like Cody Sanchez, people like Alex Hermosi, who are talking about like, hey, build something. Like this is a generation of builders. And then you have the generation under us that is like, does not want to go to college and like doesn't want to work for someone. And they're starting businesses in college. And then you've got people that are Gen X and millennials who are like, wait, I've worked for someone else for 12 years now. I'm going to go try to acquire an existing business. And that's this whole kind of like entrepreneurship through acquisition space, or it's been called ETA. What happens is a lot of these people who look for this unicorn of a business for 18 months, that's doing $1 million in EBITDA, and it doesn't have a fax machine, and there's just an old guy that's just waiting for someone to just take their business from them. Like, all of a sudden people are like, wait a minute, I've wasted 1.5 years of my life and I'm taking on a search fund. So now I'm not even going to own 100% of this business. I'm actually going to be a minority owner and I can't find anything. And now I've wasted 1.5 years of my life. Those people are now coming to franchise ownership because they're like, wait, the exact reasons that I would buy an existing business, existing processes, quicker cash flow, a team in place, like, all of the things that are in an existing business can be produced quite quickly with the right franchise brand. And so part of my goal as I continue to grow my franchise is to merge the franchise industry, or help merge the franchise industry to this like ETA holdco kind of like that kind of niche community of like searchers. And so I'm going to an event called Main Street Summit in Columbia, Missouri in November. Any of you guys should come. Last year I spoke at it. I was part of the only franchise panel at the conference. It's all about capital allocation, searching for a business, which one to buy, and about 1,000 people go. And that panel went so well that they have an entire franchise track this year.
I love that. Well, Aaron, here's a quick little tidbit, and I know the team wants to chime in on this, but to your point. So if you spend an entire 1.5 years searching for that perfect business versus just getting started with the franchise, let me tell you what can happen in the meantime. Just last month, our clients Kevin and Kathy, who will be on our podcast next week, they invested in an Action Exteriors franchise, which is one of Resi Brand's newer franchise concepts. Their business took off so fast, Cody Sanchez flew up to meet with them. They're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A year ago at this time, they called me because they couldn't buy Pinks. Pinks was sold out in their market. So we had to find them something else. And I shared with them the story of our client, Harrison, who had bought a roofing franchise. And Harrison's story is great because he's 29. He got an inheritance of like 300 grand. He buys 2 Best Choice roofing units and 2 years later flips them for like $6 million. That doesn't happen. Full disclaimer, it's not going to happen to you, but it's like these sorts of things happen. And so now here's Kathy and Kevin. In less than 12 months, they built a business that is making good money. They're being interviewed by Cody Sanchez, where they could have been doing exactly what you said, still searching on Biz by Sell for the perfect business.
Yeah. Bringing it all full circle, my concern is that there's this stigma for franchising in that community. Like, people don't know that they own 100% of the business. They hear the stories like Quizno and Subway and Anchored Tiny Homes and Premier Martial Arts and these things. And then they're like, oh, no. Like there was a post, John Wilson from the Wilson Company. He has a $32 million HVAC business. And he posted a thing that said, would you rather take on a minority partner and minority capital or be a franchisee? And like the posts underneath were like minority partner, like blah, like, and it was just like, it sucked because I know, and you guys know, and hopefully the people who listen to this know that franchising is a great way to build wealth if you find the right brand And so my concern is that, like, if franchisors are coming to market without the money, they're overselling territories, they're not getting fully involved franchise owners. Like my concern is that that stigma doesn't change. And I think it's our duty to change the stigma. Like, we got to take care of this industry. We're going to be here 20 years later. Like, boomers aren't, like, they're retiring. They can maybe keep doing what they've done for the last 40 years. Like, we can.
Well, and let's be real. And this is the thing everybody needs to accept. Nothing's promised with business ownership. Okay. If you're going to take that chance, as all of us have, you have to understand it does fall on your shoulders.
100%.
And you have to make the business go. The franchisor is there to help you, to provide support, but you have to be the one, like Brian, like Catherine, like David, like you, Aaron, who got up, went to work and built the system and didn't. And there's still, it amazes me, there's still people that call me and say, I want one of those absentee franchises, where they run the whole thing for me. And I say, you're not going to find it in franchising.
You've tried.
People try. Yeah, it doesn't work.
I joke, I sell people when they get on the phone with me. Yeah, I've got $250,000. I've got about 3 hours a week to dedicate to the business, and I really want to build a multi-million-dollar enterprise. What do you got? And I'm like, hey, I'm in franchising. All my friends and I know all the brands, right? So we got the inside scoop. We're the franchise insiders. Like, we know what's going on. If there was a brand where we could deploy $250,000 and work 3 hours a week, you wouldn't know about it because all my friends and I would have bought all the territories. Like, we would own them all. We would just own them. It'd be a mutual fund. We'd all just be collecting cash. It wouldn't even come to market because we would all know. And then they laugh and they're like, oh, okay. Maybe I shouldn't buy a franchise. I'm like, no, correct. You absolutely should not buy a franchise.
That leads me right into my question, because that was one of the questions I've written down. If you had $250K outside of your brand, where would you put it?
In a mutual fund, if I had no time.
Okay.
Come on, Aaron. We're all in on Bitcoin now. Let's go.
Doge. I put it into Doge. I just throw it on black.
I just got this Gemini card, and I do want you to answer that question. But this is not a promotion, but it's so cool. It's like everything you spend, it immediately invests in the Bitcoin of your choice. So like, wow. You're out to dinner and all of a sudden you get instead of, getting airline points, it goes into Bitcoin. I thought it was so cool. I saw
that is awesome. I need to do that.
Yeah. It's the Gemini. I've seen the Gemini boys being interviewed and I was like, dude, that's a great idea. I'm doing that.
So
okay. Aaron,
getting points or like cash back or whatever, it just goes straight into Bitcoin.
It goes right into crypto and you can choose which Bitcoin, which crypto you want. And you see it. Amazing. And the cool, like, I have to admit ignorance. I'm kind of late to the party on Bitcoin and crypto, but it moves so much faster than the stock market. Like the swings that you see on it, it's really entertaining. But yeah, so everything you spend on it, Gemini card, if you're listening, I'll look for my royalty check, immediately gets invested, which is like, to me, was so fun. So it's like you go out to dinner, you spend your $150, boom, your portfolio just got bigger. Okay, awesome. Aaron. Outside of Rolling Suds, if you had $250K to invest in a category, not a brand, where would you go?
Outside of services or outside?
No, in services. That's any, it could be painting, could be power washing, or not power washing, but outside of those.
Yeah. So I think roofing is really interesting. I think fencing is really interesting. I think commercial cleaning is interesting.
Brian and I were talking about fencing the other day. Here's what's interesting about fencing. When we've got a client with Top Rail that is like blowing the doors off of it. Fencing's really interesting to me across the three major brands. Their averages are insane.
Their averages are insane. Here's what I would do differently than what a lot of those brands are doing, though. I would have all the employees be W-2 employees and not 1099. I think the challenge with 1099 employees, and you guys might have more experience than I do, is if you go to sell the company, you don't have anything. You have a sales and marketing person who's just contracting out stuff. So it's like, ultimately, like, if you buy a business, like, your goal, you should be thinking about, like, when are you going to sell? Like, what's the end game, right? And so if you have 1099 employees and you don't have any materials, like what do you have? You have a few sales guys and some marketing dollars, right? And I think it's really important to set up an internal engine, a lead gen engine, a delivery engine that's predictable.
Do you think that's why so painting is heavy subcontractor, but its resale value is like there's right now on Biz Buy Sell a painting franchise in Florida that's doing $1.7 million, and it's for sale for 200 grand. I mean, a business doing $1.7 million should be selling for $1 million at least.
That's exactly why. There's no predictability. Like if you think about what, like, so you've got great average ticket on painting, but once you've done the job, they're probably not going to call you again. So like Hermosi says, you either have a business where customers never stop buying for you, or you have sellers that never stop selling for you, right? Like those are the two kind of things. And ideally a business has both of those things, right?
Well, and if we look at what the funds want, what private equity, when they're looking for franchisees to recapitalize, and that's the other thing that does provide hope for people who want to live this sort of lifestyle of running a business where they're, running it semi-involved. Here's what private equity does. They look for really strong operators within a system, right? And they look for at least $1 million to $3 million EBITDA. And they say, let's recap that star franchise owner. And then Aaron, and certain systems really embrace it and others don't, but they come to Aaron and they say, look, Aaron, your top franchisee, their EBITDA is 3 million. We're going to recap them. We're going to put 4 times in their pocket. And then we want to deploy another 20 into your system and basically have them go quarterback 20 more units because frankly, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you're right but what they want, they don't want those, even though again, you could show them, hey, here's this painting franchise that did $1.7 million. Well, yeah, but they did this 50K here, 50K there. Whereas like, Catherine, recurring revenue, you've got recurring clients. David, you've got recurring clients. They want predictable recurring revenue. And so for all of you guys thinking about a business, that's really, and I think Aaron brings up a great point. If you're going to put in all this work and you're going to build something, build to where you can have the kind of exit that will allow you to change your life. And I don't, I'll tell you guys, my father at 62 years old, coming out of a BK, had to start all over and had no money and had to start a franchise. He got turned down for a Visiting Angels franchise. Catherine, I don't know if you know this.
I didn't know that.
So he had to start home care assistance. But the point is, here he was 62 years old, 3 kids in college, and he starts this business with 300K in his pocket. So that's the beauty of why. And it was hard work. He's in an office all by himself, everyone in the family doubting him, saying, why on earth would you want to do this senior care business? And then 2 years later, all of us begging him for a job. And it turned into this wonderful company, but we made tons of mistakes. We brought Catherine in because we didn't know how to support franchisees. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. So we had to learn. But the point of all this is, and you guys on this listening to the podcast are hearing a lot of the battle scars. But the point is that they're worth it if you can build. You got to have an end goal. You can't just go in aimlessly and say, well, I don't want any employees and I don't want to do work, but I think it'd be cool to tell people I own a business. If that's you, don't do it.
I think we should make active income cool again. Let's make active income cool again. I mean, like every single person has ever built any meaningful level of wealth went all in on something for like a serious amount of time and then diversified. Like diversification is a problem for future you. Like if you have a job right now and you're looking for that's diversification, 7 streams of income, that's a problem for future you to figure out. And I have 24 team members. I stepped into a chairman of the board position 3 months ago. And I'm 6 weeks into chairman of the board, high level content creation, broker strategy, relationships, very high level. and a department in my company, as you guys know, needed attention. And so I stepped back in. So I have 24 team members, and I'm not semi-absentee. So like, I would say that the business that someone's considering buying should be worth not only your time, but constant reinvestment of time and capital, right? So like, if you buy a franchise, you should see a path to 2, 3, 4, 5 million plus. Like, and then what do we have to do to get there? If it's a B2B service business, if it's a staffing and recruiting business, like a cleaning business would be basically a staffing and recruiting business, right? Like a B2B business is a sales business. Like, what do you like doing in your normal life? And typically, like, if you're good at sales and someone's paying you $150,000 to $200,000 to do sales for their company, you don't own anything of that company. What if you put that effort towards your own business? You would create enterprise value, and then you'd be able to change your life. So I would urge people to do that when they're thinking about a business.
I think something everybody on this podcast does really well. Catherine, Brian, David, Aaron, you guys are all excellent at selling without selling, meaning that you guys aren't trying to sell. Personally, I think the day of like the slick sales guy is done. Nobody wants it anymore. People want realness. People want, I'm going to go on, I want to listen to people, I want to hear real experiences. And I think you guys are all great at that. You're not trying to sell anyone anything, but you're, by your sheer energy and honesty and just real experiences, that draws people to you and wanting to work with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just love to help people. I mean, that's my approach. Like, I've been meeting with different local businesses for soccer stars, like that have similar, that have young kids. And it's like, how can I help you? How can I help grow your ballet business? Like, is there anything I can do? And they're like, well, how can I help you? It's just coming at it with, I don't know, just the reciprocity kind of approach of building business and just being a connector, right? Like Francesca did that so well, Jack. She was one of our top salespeople at our old company, and she just comes from a place of heart. And I think that's what we all come from, a place of heart and just wanting to make the world a better place and to help people, whether it's our end user or our employees. And like, that's authentic, and like that is what sets that intention and like grows a really powerful and successful company.
I love it. Last thoughts, because Aaron, I know we're against it. Brian, David, you guys want to share some last takes, questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. I think Kathy nailed it. I came from law enforcement, and my whole life was just trying to help people. And I'm at a very bit on this panel right now. I know I'm still at the bottom, working my way up, learning, and I'm just grateful that I've given this opportunity. But all this going full circle, it's just because I'm here just to help people. And that's my story, and that's why I'm, became an insider.
Yep. I think I'll just highlight something that Aaron said. And I think, again, it's just so important to be very real when you're in your due diligence, you're listening podcasts, doing your search. When you're building something the way Aaron's building it, or the way David's building, or the way Catherine's building, it's all in, right? These are not part-time gigs. This is not a side hustle. The level of effort directly correlates to the size of business you build. So I think, I just appreciate Aaron coming in and being very honest about what it takes to build $1 million business.
Thanks,
I love
guys,
that
for having me. It's been awesome.
Aaron, we're going to have Josh York on next week. Have you ever met Josh from Gym Guys?
Yeah, I have.
He's a cool dude. You guys will get along, I feel like.
Yeah. We haven't talked at length, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. So, but no, I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. Aaron, there's no one like you. You're and I knew you would be a perfect guest for our podcast because you say it how it is. You want to help people. You truly do. You come at this from the right place. So for all of you listening, I think you just got a gold mine worth. I mean, we had a whole agenda. We didn't even get to like even half of it because there was so much good stuff. Aaron, anything that we've left unsaid? Anything you want to just finish up the podcast with?
No, I think come to franchising as a franchisee for the right reasons, to build something meaningful. As much as it's on us to help as a franchisor to help you build your business. I've put everything on the line to build a great brand. This is my everything. And so I expect great franchisees to come in and give their all to build a location. And I can't do that without franchisees putting their effort towards it. And that's not just money. It's time, it's effort, it's attention, it's care. And you can't build a great franchise brand without franchisees putting their all into it. And so it's both, there's both sides to this. The franchisees and the franchisor have to work together. It's a partnership. And yeah.
I think that's great. Aaron, thank you so much for being our guest today. This has been fabulous. For all of you listening, if you'd like to have a conversation about franchising, you want to speak to a real franchise owner, go to thefranchiseinsiders.com. I urge you to go to our team section, read the bios on Catherine, on Morgan, on Brian, on David, on Jill, and myself. Any of us would be delighted to help you with your franchise search, to get you in contact with franchisors, great franchisors like Rolling Suds and Aaron Harper. So again, visit thefranchiseinsiders.com. And for all of you listening, we appreciate you greatly, and we'll talk to you next time.
Down clean, we bought a franchise. We bought a franchise.